So you may have been noticing claims like this. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children in America. Mass shootings don't happen without assault weapons. Help Democrats increase their majority in the Senate. In the United States, 3 million children are exposed to gun violence every year. It's the leading cause of death for children and teens. I honestly don't know what that whole 3 million thing is about. I think President Biden is about time to dedicated, because of that. Yeah, Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Gun violence is the #1 cause of death for American children and teens. It's shameful. The gun industry and their enablers need to know we are not going away. Democrats, led by President Biden and VP Harris, strongly led, will keep working with survivors and advocates to #end gun violence. Guns are the leading cause of death for children in America. Republicans are the leading cause of guns. Any more questions? Actually, I'd say the leading cause of guns is tyrants, but, or reality. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children in America, but right now Republicans are wasting time on the House floor since they're unable to pass any of their legislation. I called Republicans to call votes on bills that would prevent gun violence and save lives. Guns are the leading cause of death for children. 2A calls for a well-regulated militia, which doesn't mean what you think it means. Not a right to have a gun. Factually false. People have a right to life. True. Liberty. True. And the pursuit of justice. Yeah. Regarding the California's high-capacity magazine ban just struck down by Judge Benitez, or Saint Benitez, as we know him here in California. Extremist right-wing zealot with no regard. Bullshit. He was a judge. A very good one at that. And also, he stayed his ruling for 10 days so that the state could appeal it. So, chill. We don't have another Freedom Week, sadly. Something like this. Oh, it's a response to Gavin Newsom. I didn't even notice that. New, a panel of right-wing justices just blocked our bill that stopped gun manufacturers from marketing weapons of war to kids. This is pure insanity. Guns are now the leading cause of death for kids. And what are we doing? Allowing folks to promote junior AR-15s with, what's that? With sick cartoons like the one below. And then a Reuters thing. Yeah, We1 Tactical. Yeah, the Junior 15. The JR-15. The Junior 15. It's a 22 long rifle, which is a fucking nothing of a round, which is why kids tend to learn on it, which I'm going to have to do a whole fucking thing on this. This is a deliberate lie. According to the CDC, accidents are the leading cause of death for children and adolescents, which I don't know if that's true. I didn't look at that part. The claim that guns are the leading cause of death for children would only be true if children under 1 are excluded and 18 and 19-year-old combatant gang members are counted as children. I mean, that part we're going to see. Oh, he actually has a stats link. Mortality. Children aged 1 to 14, or 1 to 4 years. Leading cause of death. Accidents for 1 to 4 years. Children 5 to 9, accidents. Children 10 to 14, accidents. Intentional self-harm. Yep. Cancer accidents, cancer assault. It's like, wow. Accidents, congenital malformations and all that. Assault again. And then accidents, suicide, cancer. Okay, so that's what he's going with. Like, if you only go up to 14 years old, when, below that, you get children. It's accidents, accidents, accidents. But children are 17 and below. So let's take a look at where these claims are coming from. So I was able to find this child and teen firearm mortality in the U.S. and peer countries. Editor's note, this brief was updated in 2023 with newer data. Yeah. So in 2020 and 2021, firearms contributed to the deaths of more children ages 1 to 17 years in the U.S. than any other type of injury or illness. The child firearm mortality rate has doubled in the U.S. from a recent low of 1.8 deaths per 100,000 in 2013 to 3.7 in 2021. All right, so first, let's talk about this. Firearms contributed to the deaths of more children aged 1 to 17 years in the U.S. Notice how they say 1 to 17, so they're excluding 0 to 1. All right, well, let's look up 0 to 1 for infant mortality. Almost 20,000 infants died in the U.S. in 2020, and then there's, different reasons why they would die. So let's break it down a little. So each year there are about 3,400 sudden unexpected infant deaths in the United States. These deaths occur among infants less than 1 year old and have no immediately obvious cause. Okay, so we just don't know why they're dying. 3 commonly reported types of it are sudden infant death syndrome, baby just dead. Unknown cause, we don't know why. And then accidental suffocation and strangulation in bed. So if we just take sudden unexpected infant deaths, 3,400. Let's skip this for now, and then we're gonna look down here at firearms. The high, 2,571. So 2.5 thousand, 3.4 thousand. So if we just take sudden unexpected infant deaths, you have more. In 1 year, you have more deaths than in 16 years, 1 to 17, than in 16 years of life. 16 years of life, you have 2,571 deaths. In 1 year, you have 3,400, roughly. In 2020, there was 1,389 deaths due to sudden infant death syndrome. About 1,062 deaths to unknown causes, and 905 deaths due to accidental suffocation and strangulation in bed. All right, what about something else? Preterm birth. All right, preterm birth is when a baby is born too early, before 37 weeks of pregnancy have been completed. In 2021, preterm birth affected about 1 of every 10 infants born in the United States. Wow. The preterm birth rate rose 4% from 10.1 to 10.5 in 2021. Babies born too early, especially before 32 weeks, have higher rates of death and disability. In 2020, preterm birth and low birth weight accounted for about 16% of infant deaths before 1 year of age. Babies who survive may have these things. So real quick, let's just do some math. 2020, preterm birth and low birth weight accounted for about 16% of infant deaths. 16% times the almost 20,000. So 20,000 times 16%, almost 3,200. So just preterm birth and low birth weight alone reaching 3,200 is already more than firearms at 2,571, because they exclude 0 to 1 when they talk about children. Sorry, but your 5-month-old baby is not your child. Your 5-month-old baby is a non-child for our study. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, and that was with the 2021 firearms. 2020 firearms were actually only 2.27. Did just barely sneak out, but that's only 1 to 17. Again, if you include 0 to 17, it's actually much different. You get a number that, if you just go infant, ends up, where would that be? 5, 10, 15. You'd end up with a line that starts above the article. All right, so now let's go to the second one. The United States has by far the highest rate of child and teen firearm mortality among peer nations. So they're comparing us to peer nations, but they say child and teen, and there's a reason for that. And they also say in no other similarly large, wealthy country are firearms in the top 4 causes of death for children and teens. Again, children and teens, let alone the number 1 cause. So right there, they're already comparing to other countries. And not only that, they're comparing us to similarly large or wealthy countries, which is its own little caveat. The firearms were involved in more deaths than any other cause. Okay. And now here's where it gets different. So the U.S. has by far the highest child and teen firearm mortality rate among similarly large and wealthy nations. This is where the child and teen thing come in really handy. Firearm mortality rate per 100,000 for children and teens ages 1 to 19 years, meaning excluding 0 to 1 year olds and including 18 and 19 year olds. Last I checked, 18 and 19 year olds are not children for any other reason. You can vote, you can go to war at 18 and 19, you can do whatever, you can consent. All right, but they use children and teens, so they throw that in. And then when they compare us, there's like, oh, you have 6 per 100,000, and then all these other similarly sized wealthy nations, even though these are different sizes. But like in wealth, they're similar. But if we look up here, the child firearm mortality rate in the U.S. is 3.7. 3.7 in 2021. But you look at the U.S. in 2021 and it says 6. That means by just adding those 2 years of 18 and 19, you go from 3.7 to 6. That's an increase of 2.3. 2.3, not a big number. But you're starting at 3.7. It isn't the furthest thing from doubling for being such a small number. It's still more than adding half. So it is specifically a 62% increase by adding 2 years. You get 16 years, and then you add 2 more. In that 2 more years, you get a 62% increase. That's a lot of shit going on in those 2 years right there. Makes you think that maybe there's like a bell curve that's way over here, and then it like dies out. Makes you think that it's probably all going to be clumped up over here. But let's continue. So now that we've cleared the 1 to 19, let's talk about this. Firearm mortality rate per 100,000 for children and teens age 1 to 19 years. In the US, 2021. In peer countries, 2019. So they're using post-pandemic and post-isolation and post-mental health crisis exacerbation data from the United States after everything started to rise, and pre-pandemic and pre-isolation for the other countries. Seems a little bit fishy to me. Again, we look here. 2019, it was, not too far off from what it was. It was kind of going down a little bit. And then it shot up in 2020 and 2021. And that even carries over for the rest of the population. You have a generally low, and then it goes up a little, and it starts to come down, and then boop. It starts to come down, it goes up a little bit, and then shoots up to where it's closer to like the mid 70s, 1980, and the early to mid 90s for the murder rate. Quite interesting that after 2019, murder starts going up. Wonder what could have caused that. So yeah, 2019 data from the other places and 2021 data from here. And again in their further tables, ranking number of deaths by cause of mortality for children and teens age 1 to 19. US 2021 and peer countries 2019. They're still using old data for them and new data for us. Also, when you look at like the total numbers, it's like 4,000. Some here reach triple digits and all that. But like the highest triple digit that I can see at the moment is 400. Oh, there's a 492. So you get like 500. Meanwhile, the US has a near 5,000. That's because the US population is just way bigger. For example, it mentions just below that the United States accounts for 46% of the total population in all these countries, but 97% of gun-related child and teen deaths. But again, 1 to 19 in 2021 versus their 2019. The dates aren't super important for the data, but it is worth noting that they're using our heightened data versus their probably heightened data. And an interesting thing is that we can break it down into assault, suicide, and then the unintentional or undetermined. And the interesting thing about this is, why is it that 1 to 19 have assaults being the most when in the larger population that doesn't pan out? For example, a year later, Johns Hopkins, apparently, Center for Gun Violence Solutions, says that suicide is the overwhelming problem, whereas homicide not so much for the overall population. But children have assaults being the biggest problem, and then suicides. I don't know many 10-year-olds who are being assaulted or assaulting with firearms, but that's probably based on where I live. U.S. child and teen firearm assault and suicide deaths have increased. Firearm assault, firearm suicide. Not changed too much. It's kind of going up. But firearm assault, it's really cranking up. But again, firearm mortality rate per 100,000 children and teens ages 1 to 19 in the U.S. by type of firearm death, 2000 to 2021. 3.9, 1.8, 0.3. I think I broke it down. Yeah, so if you get the total, assaults account for 64%. But so by just adding those 2 years, why is there such a large increase? Well, maybe because older teens and younger adults illegally using firearms are doing other illegal things, and probably in certain places. I'm sure you could imagine what places might have rampant groups of young people using illegally acquired or just using firearms in an illegal manner. I'm sure it's not hard to think about what cities those things might be occurring in. Another thing I noticed was the New York Times posting this, and this seems to be like what we saw before, except if you look even here, the motor vehicles thing, like 2,000-ish. The high is 4,500, so it's a double. Like you take the number and you double it, you get that. You go down the double, and it's 0. So 0 to there to double. You look at the New York Times thing, and you get it right about here. That doesn't seem like doubling. A visually misleading, and you could even say misrepresenting thing. So if we go double this, you get about whatever that is. Or if you go from here up to there, you end up about right here, just below cancer and still way above suffocation. However, if you look here and you go to there, that will put you like at the bottom, and suffocation is there. So come on, New York Times, stop trying to misrepresent the data. Motor vehicle crashes should be about that high-ish. You can see where it'd be. But just to double check, let's go to Snopes. Are guns the leading cause of death for children in the U.S.? The claim that guns were the leading cause of death for children in 2020 and 2021 is true only if the selected age range is 1 to 19 years old. This range excludes infants under 1 year old who have a unique risk of age-specific causes of death. Similarly, capping the age range at 17 instead of 18 or 19 also alters the results, as children aged 17 and under have a greater risk of dying of vehicle-related injuries. Wait. You mean the thing that is always been that when you exclude 18 and 19-year-olds, it drops the firearm thing? But I'm looking at it right here. Snopes, are you sure about that? Maybe this whole thing is wrong. An analysis from Kaiser Family Foundation, a research nonprofit that relied on 2020 data compiled by the CDC, found the firearms were the #1 cause of death for children and teens in the U.S. Those deaths included accidents, suicides, and homicides. The analysis found that in 2020 alone, gun-related violence killed that many children aged 4,357. That's where that number was from. I was doing the 64% being assaults out of it, and for the actual assaults you get 3,047. I was then also comparing that to the 16% of infant deaths from preterm birth and low birth weight, which again, 3,200. Just preterm birth and low birth weight alone, in that 1 year of life, there are more deaths than in the 16, or in this case, 18 years that die by assault with a firearm. If you forget what I'm referencing, it's this. The 1 to 19 years in 2021, 3.87 are assaults. 3.87 out of the total is 64% of the age 1 to 19-year-olds dying is 3,047. 16% of almost 20,000 infants is almost 3,200. Preterm birth and low birth weight alone outnumber the children who actually are dying by assaults with firearms. Children and teens, age 1 to 19, by comparison, motor vehicle deaths accounted for that deaths at that age range. But that's just deaths. If you just take out suicides, it drops you way below motor vehicle deaths for 1 to 19-year-olds. However, the result is different if one removes 18 and 19-year-olds from the equation and only relies on data for 1 to 17-year-olds from 2020. Nearly 2,400 children aged 1 to 17 died of vehicle-related injuries in 2020, compared with 2,270 firearm deaths. NBC News analysis of the CDC data showed. What? Kaiser Family Foundation, I think is what you're called. Did you lie to me? Motor vehicle. 2,159, 2,270, 2,159. Why do you say nearly? President Biden, that's not the whole story. Thank you, NBC. 21-year-olds are dying from guns at a higher rate than any other age. Interesting. It's like these young adults are doing something weird. Also, that's the exact fucking thing I was thinking. There's like, maybe a couple here, but then like nothing. And then it just goes up once you hit. What do you know? I'm guessing that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Once you hit 12 or 13, I guess, it really goes up. Just like I had guessed. I don't remember if I was recording when I said that. But just like I had guessed, once you go, oh no, yeah, because I said by adding 2 years, you get 16 years, and then you add 2 more. In that 2 more years, you get a 62% increase. That's a lot of shit going on in those 2 years right there. Makes you think that maybe there's like a bell curve that's way over here, and then it like dies out. Makes you think that it's probably all going to be clumped up over here. What was I looking at when I found that? Ah, this is what it was. from that dude's tweet. It was the CDC saying children aged 1 to 4. Leading cause of death for children aged 1 to 4, accidents, congenital, assault, homicide. Children aged 5 to 9, accidents, cancer, assault, homicide. Presumably by their parents, I'm guessing. Children aged 10 to 14, accidents, intentional self-harm, suicide. Because you start to get into that, like, puberty, bullying, depression shit really hard. And then cancer. And it's once you go above 14 years old, thank you, CDC. Once you go above 14 years old, that you get that really high gun death rate. More than 40,000 people died by firearms in 2020. Yeah, it doesn't say if it's suicide or not. What's interesting, so you got 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So from this point down, and then one more dot after this. From this point down, assaults make up 64% and suicides make up, make up 30%. From here down, assaults make up 64% and suicides make up 30%. But for the larger population, based on Johns Hopkins Center stuff, based on 2022 CDC provisional data, different. Or if you look at the Pew Research Center in 2021, when murder has gone up a lot, you still have 54% suicides and 43% murders. If you look at it down here, if you look at it from like 2019, it's probably more like 60 to 64% suicide, and then like 30, 35, maybe 37% murder or homicide. Which specifically, I don't know if CDC says murder or says homicide, because homicide just means a man killed a man. Murder is an unjustified killing. So I'm not sure if the CDC actually has that specificity. But so yeah, when you flip it to this, you get overwhelmingly suicides, but then right from here down, which is overwhelmingly this chunk, you get homicides more. Why are these people doing so much of the homicide stuff and then slowly doing less of it and switching over to overwhelmingly suicide? It's almost like there's people in this age range that are doing shit that's getting them put in situations where homicides happen. Could it maybe be related to gangs? That's up for you to decide on what you believe. But I think it's a pretty safe bet. Thank you, NBC News. But you know I gotta check. New York Times, 100 out of 100. Snopes, 100 out of 100. And NBC, 100 out of 100. NewsGuard certified. Right on. I just had to check for my personal preferences. I like to use NewsGuard certified stuff when I'm doing my research. Oh yeah, I still don't know why it says nearly that many children aged that died of vehicle-related injuries compared to that firearm deaths. NBC News analysts of the CDC say it shows. Yeah, so next time you see claims like guns are now the #1 killer of children in the US, you know that it's not actually true. It is only if you exclude people who haven't lived 1 year yet, and if you include 18 and 19-year-olds who are for some reason doing a lot of, at the bare minimum, receiving assaults. So yeah, I'm probably going to do something on that next. Sorry, Nancy Pelosi, but gun violence, not really the #1 cause of death for American children and teens. Also notice how she says and teens. I think that means she actually does know, or whoever wrote this, which could be her, actually knows that it's with 18 and 19-year-olds and children minus less than 1-year-olds. Notes on this. You hammered. Abortion kills more. Oh yeah, and just to touch on that, a total of 620,000 plus abortions for 2020 were reported to CDC from 49 reporting areas, among 48 reporting areas with data each year during 2011 to 2020. In 2020, a total of 615,911 abortions were reported. The abortion rate was 11.2 abortions per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44 years. Yeah, so immediately, if you include abortions, tops the charts way more than anything else. So in the, depending on your view, very first 9 months of a life, there are way more deaths, all of which being intentional, or the vast majority of which being intentional. I don't know how you get an unintentional abortion. So you may want to talk about that for if you're so concerned with the children. But even if you don't account for abortions, you still have the other things like NBC News, Snopes, and a random guy that likes to do some research on the internet and then talk about it. But that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed, please like the video, comment, subscribe, and peace. Fuck. Peace.